And we will begin. You're about to witness the strength of creep knowledge. Good evening, and welcome to Slip Into the Night, episode 1. Episode uno, as they say. Clairvoyance and Fraud. I actually kind of touched on this subject with good old David Batdorf. We're actually more or less talking about people's ability to be duped and why that is. Like that whole question of why people, just why. Flat earthers and the such. We went down that road. But Holly wanted to talk about clairvoyance. Psychic phenomenon, would you say, Holly?
Yeah, I think clairvoyance is one of those, what they call like psychic gifts, and just kind of chat with you about my experiences, your experiences, what we see people doing, how it's this kind of fraud, and like what's the basis of real phenomenon.
Mm-hmm.
So for my experience, where I've done some what they call psychic development, you have what are the clair senses. So it's come from clair, the French word meaning clear, extrasensory perception, of which clairvoyance is just one of them. And this is clairvoyance is images in your mind, essentially. And people who are clairvoyant can sometimes claim they see auras, they see energy, they could see spirits. In the mental pictures of their mind, and sometimes it is with their eyes open and sometimes with your eyes closed. um and the way I was taught to develop it was, like if when you are reading a book and you are imagining the story, and see the pictures in your mind to develop that kind of visual screen in your mind, and at some point you can um you know, energetically develop that and interact with the spirit world that way. Um, there are other clairsenses like clairaudience, where you hear voices or sounds that are not physically present, or they may be energetic. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there is claircognizance, which is that just intuitive knowing. Clairsentience, which is that kind of gut feeling, or it's that is when you kind of if you've ever had that feeling of going into a room and it just doesn't feel good and it makes you feel sickly, or maybe it makes you feel really energized. So that's described as clear sentience. There's clear gustance, which is tasting something that's not there. There's one about smell. That's like, if you're in your room that your grandmother's in, and you start smelling her favorite flower. This is the psychic sense of like psychic smell. Um, so it really is more than just clairvoyance, but that is the one that's been really put out there into the media, and people are described as clairvoyant psychics, and they're seeing things. And I think to a certain degree that this is kind of exploded into a um, bit of a charlatan type of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm kind of hoping to, discuss what my experience is, what your experience is, and then, also talk about how this has been used to really defraud people. And also touch on things like remote viewing. Where the government has kind of investigated this, that said that there's some evidence for that.
Mm-hmm.
So do you have any clairvoyant
Well,
experiences?
I mean, I am obviously, I've stated many times before, I'm a very skeptical person. I'm one of those people, I want to believe, but I come from a very rational mind. And I have had experiences, albeit, most of them I can chalk up to just feelings or whatever, or maybe just seeing how things were moving and just kind of seeing the causality of it all. But the biggest one that I always look back to is when I was a little kid. I used to have this I used to have this recurring vision, and it was like a movie trailer, like before a movie at like the drive-in, where like things would flip, that was like a movie projector, and it was like I always equated it to like a Say No to Drugs commercial, because the Say No to Drugs campaign was like really huge that in that point in time in my life. And so the screen stops and there's these two kids on a bench, teenagers, and one looks to the other one and says, "Hey man, you want another hit?" Excuse me. And the whole time there's just this sound, and all I can like equate it with is like somebody saying Ricky's the one, and they're saying it over and over and over and over. So it's like this, it's like this echoey fucking mess. Now you flash forward to when I was a teenager. I had these for like, it was for quite a few years when I was young, that I remember having these when I was real young. And you flash forward to when I was a teenager, and I got into doing some stupid shit when I was a teenager with my friends. And one of the stupid fucking things that I got into was huffing gas. And one of the things that if you've ever huffed gas, is it causes you to have this echo, this weird like reverberation of sound. But I was sitting on a bench in the middle of a baseball field with my friend Mark at the time, and we were passing back and forth the thing of gas, and I blacked out from huffing too much. I like just kind of fell out, and as I came to, everything flipped like a movie, just like was in this vision of mine. And I can hear the echoey thing in the back of my head, just like in my vision when I was a young kid. And as it stops, I look over and there's Mark, and he says, "Hey man, you want another hit?" And in that minute, that instant, my brain could not handle what I'd seen, what I realized in that moment. And I got up and I ran directly into the woods. I didn't have any particular place. I wasn't running like to somewhere. I just ran into the woods, like straight into a tree. And it was because it just, in that moment, I saw exactly what I had seen in my youth. Now, was that me seeing the future? I don't know. I don't know what it was.
Right.
I don't know exactly what it was. I don't understand time. I don't understand anything. I know that to me it was a very strange situation. And for me to try to wrap my head around the fact that I didn't see the future, I don't know that I can. Because there's just too many factors. Like I could say like, oh, well, you just saw this thing on TV and you made this thing up in your brain when you were a kid, and then later on when you were having this hallucination under the effects of gas, you remembered this thing that you saw when you were a kid and your brain just recreated it. I don't know.
Right.
I know that in that moment, all I could think was, you saw this 10 years ago, or almost 10 years ago. And my brain just went crazy. I literally, like, it's one of the very few times in my life where I've had no control over what my body did. Like, fight or flight just took over, and I took the fuck off.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've had many other experiences where I've, had a dream that someone was going to come by my house, and then they did, like, the very next day.
Mhm.
Um, is that just coincidence? I don't know if it's coincidence or not.
Mhm.
Um, but at the same time, I do think that there's some validity to some of this stuff. I just don't know how much of it can be directed and controlled. I think that what comes from it is understanding. Maybe an understanding, like I said on the our quote unquote preview episode.
Mhm.
Seeing the direction of the river, and
Mhm.
putting yourself in a better position. Maybe I was
Right.
just seeing something. Maybe to put
Mhm.
myself in a better position.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, I mean, I come from kind of a skeptical background as well, where, like in the other episode, we talked about how, I've done a lot of like technology and science, which is very um, based in data and things that can be easily validated. And some of, these clairvoyant experiences, you have to take the seer's kind of word for it. Um, but I kind of investigated it, um, starting in my kind of early 30s, where I felt like I was seeing ghosts and kind of spirit phenomenon around me, and kind of wanted to understand more. What I am I actually seeing something? And of course, I thought that if you start to see some stuff, is am I going crazy? And is mental illness a problem? You know, it just as if one of the other psychic senses, being that clairaudience or hearing things, you kind of need to like be able to evaluate, is that truly just purely mental illness? Or if it's, cognizant, are you, hearing something? And kind of needing to sort some of these experiences out, and, wrap my own rational mind around it. Um,
Mm-hmm.
One of those things that I did was, I went and experienced Reiki healing, which is one of those hands-on healings. Does it work? Does it doesn't? What is the science? There's no real scientific basis for it, other than it being kind of a touch type healing.
Mm-hmm.
But personally, I would kind of go into a, different wave experience, and see things in my head that made other parts of my life make sense. So you would say that that would be the kind of clairvoyant seeing, when my brain was relaxed enough to be kind of in a more meditative state, rather than like the daily alpha wave state, and kind of shifted into like what they call theta wave.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so
Now, do you think that had more to do with your own relaxation and your own vibration, or that of whoever was directing their energy at you?
I think it's both. I think that when you are in the right receptive state, my experiences is that, when you are relaxed and open, you can kind of experience it. Um, but that you also need, to feel like you're in the right environment. So in some cases, because I was in getting Reiki, and I had already accepted that it was a woo woo experience, I
Mm-hmm.
had accepted that there was the potential for woo woo things to happen, which I was not entirely comfortable with, but I was going to let whatever happen, because I had kind of exhausted traditional medical help for some things, and I was going to try something different. Um, but in that course of that, I did see things in my mind through this kind of, like, suppose clairvoyant sense, and seems to be something of a something there. to kind of investigate further. Now,
Oh, I
could
definitely
I
think there is like something is there. And I'm not denying that. I just question where those things come from and whether or not they can come from someone else to you.
Mhm.
I think most any of this stuff is personal and it
Agreed.
comes from within.
Mhm.
Um, Now, beyond being like people being teachers or nurturers or people who help you, I just don't know how much people become a catalyst for that. Do you understand what I mean by that?
Um, can
Where
you
they
explain more?
because where I think as with a person who's giving you Reiki, those people to me are like a catalyst. They're like transferring energy, and I don't know that someone being a catalyst to transfer you energy. I think it comes from within you. I mean, that's how I see it. With any of that stuff, I see all this stuff as a very personal, um, transformative energy.
Right. So in the shamanic tradition, you often are described as the like the hollow tube or the hollow bone, and that
Mm-hmm.
you just allow things from the other side to flow through you. It's very similar with Reiki, although it's a specific kind of energy that the Reiki master, Reiki provider is just letting it flow through them, and they are not actually doing doing anything energetically other than just simply being a conduit. And even I wouldn't even say catalyzing things, because there's to be a catalyst actually does some kind of facilitation. It truly with Reiki, you're just supposed to let it flow through you.
Right. Um, I would only say that they're being a catalyst in the sense that that they are yes, while they might be letting it flow through them, they're in some way changing that energy and they're targeting it and that they're making it a healing source. So in that sense, I would say that's the intention. Um, but I think that stuff, like I said, I think that stuff comes from within
Hmm.
the person being healed.
Hmm.
Because I think there's a lot, too much, in fact, sometimes that I think is put on these other people that do these crazy, amazing things, these quote unquote healers, and so on and so forth. Um, I also think that's a dangerous road too. Um, because when you become a healer, it changes the way people look at you. And I think that can be a dangerous thing in today's society with the way people can be. Oh well, my Reiki healer says. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, I absolutely agree with that. Like
Okay.
you, there is a power trap with that, and kind of like this new age falsehood that says, "Oh, I have this kind of magical ability and I can heal you," and you can overpromise things, and um, also take on more attributes of what you're doing to someone else's life, through some kind of gift that you've acquired through meditation or some other kind of metaphysical study, and truly anyone has who heals, the only one who can really heal you is you.
Hmm.
You can go to someone else who maybe understands how energy works, and they can help facilitate you to make some kind of change
Well, I think
or
they can help
realization.
you understand things. They can give you that understanding and help you, like you're saying, yes, help you come to those realizations about things. And I
Yes.
think that is of far more importance than anyone, directing or anyone doing any type of healing or um I even hesitate to say, I don't hesitate to say it, but that people, maybe shouldn't so much even pray, or in the circles that you and I would be talking about, shamans, Wiccans, witches, so on and so forth, it would be spell casting, basically, or it would be spells. What they consider spells, I consider still prayer. But directing that energy, I question it, and I think you understand why I do. Because I think it's a crutch. I think too many people look to it, when in fact they could be looking at directing that energy on themselves and inward, and making those changes, those positive changes that will affect their life, and therefore affect those other people around them that they also want to affect positive change with.
Right. Well, I think there's a real potential for people to want someone else to fix their problems.
Oh,
and and
definitely.
and when you're like western medicine, you go to your doctors and that's not helping you fix your problems, and you've gone to your therapist and you're therapist isn't fixing your problems. Well, then you kind of move on to like the new age healers and the shamans, and a really good shaman is going to say, well, I can help you, but you have to fix your own problems.
Yeah.
And that is the shamanic path, is looking deep within yourself and really understanding where your wounds are and kind of where you are maybe sabotaging yourself.
Well, when I initially had gotten into ritual magic, I was under this delusion of what I was trying to attain. And but what I realized in the long run was that it's a process of self transformation and transforming yourself for the better.
Hmm.
And all it is a set of tools of how to do that. And like I've said many times before, they are systems of self transformation. They are also can be systems of self destruction if you
Hmm.
choose to use them that way.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, but when it comes to these issues of are there clairvoyant abilities? Is there such a thing as clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience, whatever the case may be? I believe that it exists.
Hmm.
I believe a lot of it, though, to a great degree, is instinctual genetics. I think there are things that are left over in our reptile brain, things that we process about our environment that we don't understand, and
Hmm.
that those things come through as intuitions, or deja vu, whatever the case may be. I think that a lot of it has to do with that leftover reptile brain just processing all that information. You walk into a room, you see a scene, you process every little detail of it in your brain that you don't realize you do,
Hmm.
and then boom, you have some sort of intuition. You read somebody's body language that you didn't see just from your interaction with them, but your
Hmm.
brain caught it.
Hmm.
It's sort of like the little dog in the room. Your subconscious brain just seeing all these things, maybe, and then being like, hey, that dude's not cool. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
But it,
And
that
it,
and in this but in the same sense, I'm not trying to discount the fact that these abilities could and do exist. I've witnessed them. Like, I've seen things that have happened, or experienced these things that have happened when I wasn't there, or when I was there, but I experienced them years before, hence my story earlier, which is more
Mhm.
like you were saying, like a prophetic vision type thing.
Mhm. Right.
But I also see that as sort of like a clairvoyant type of situation.
Agreed, because you're using that visual sense.
Hmm.
Like, for example, when I was in mediumship classes, and um, the exercise was to close your eyes and see if you could call a spirit in to see a spirit in your mind.
Hmm.
And I was like, I absolutely cannot do this because I have always seen myself as more of a scientist and a very like rational person. I'm like sitting here and I'm like, I am wasting my money. What am I doing here? And but to my surprise, we meditated, we tuned in. I asked to see a spirit in my mind, and one showed up. Like, now, is this priming my mind to create an expectation? Maybe.
Well, I think
You know.
I think in those instances, your brain created an archetype
Mm.
that you wanted.
It- yeah, maybe.
And if that gave you some type of if that gave you some type of interaction for more than four,
uh,
no, if that gave you some type of interaction that, that allowed you to in some way grow as a person,
hmm
then who am I to shit on that?
right.
And I think meditation and some of these inward things, like people talk about the like brain library shit. They people store information so that they can easily access it, which is it's a skill.
hmm
But people do it. They have this way of doing it, and they can just readily access any bit of information that they want that they've put in there through this method. So like I said, if these things work for you, um, even if they are these archetypes that you're creating in your own brain,
hmm
then if it's working and it's making you become a better person and it's allowing you to grow, then why is that a bad thing? And
I don't.
I also think a lot of divinity comes from within.
Correct. I mean, although my experience is that it's not necessarily, um, you know, um, just internally generated. You know, I progressed further and would give readings. And I would say I have this spirit. This is this male spirit. He's 30. He's coming. He has, he's saying he's from Florida, and go on and on and on. And someone else in the class says that is, and I'm like, their name starts with J. This is,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually through dialogue, identify that to be the family member, and then go on from there. So it's hard to. It's a difficult place because I understand where you're saying it can be internally self-generated, and then it is amongst the group. Everyone wants to go along, but I've also been in there where I'm like had experiences at mediumship class where I'm like I'm experiencing this spirit, and then no one is immediately claiming it, and then we kind of maybe figure it out, or maybe we don't, and I'm like, all right, I don't know where that's coming from, and just let it go.
Mm-hmm.
So it's as much as some of it I do think is internal, I do think that there is some kind of external conscious energy beyond my body to interact with,
Yeah.
and through these senses is one way to do it. And
Yeah, like I said, ultimately, ultimately, I don't know, and I don't think anybody does know.
Mhm,
Um, and I think the hard part about it is that we are these vessels, these things that are here, and
mhm,
anything we perceive comes through this vessel.
mhm,
Excuse me. So, um, it's kind of like a biased environment that we pull, or a biased reality that we pull our experiences from. Whenever we experience anything, so anything that you experience, that you catalog,
mhm.
or you go through, you're experiencing it through the bias of you.
Well, that's all you can do.
Right, exactly. And I think therefore our experience in and of itself is flawed.
Well, I think it's subjective.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's what I mean. It's subjective, it's flawed. It's ours. Mine
But I
is
think,
mine, yours is yours. Now, here's the thing, like, and this gets even really fucking deeper, is your reality independent of my reality? And does it exist? I mean, obviously, if I die tomorrow, your reality continues on. Okay. But is my reality independent of your reality?
Is
Do
light.
our realities change? Like that when you get into that whole subjective, I'm living in my own little. You can go down these rabbit holes that just, whew, they can get really deep.
You can, but I think it comes down to one, what feels true to yourself, and two, there are kind of paradoxes that we can't really understand until we see it from a different perspective. This is like light. It is described by science as being both a particle and a wave. And then later on, it's like, well, we can maybe have a photon, which has um, properties of both a particle and a wave. And so, as you kind of experience things and get more data, sometimes your understanding of things change. This could be the exact same thing with our own consciousness. We are maybe in discrete units of consciousness that are part of a larger consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
The same way as a light is a
Well,
particle.
and it's about perception, and to quote
Hmm.
the Moody Blues,
Hmm.
uh and I don't want to give them any status of fucking gurus or anything, because I know the lead singer hates that shit. But the what a thing to believe, but it's that idea of that perception of, like, of, instead of seeing the sunlight or seeing the sun, hearing it.
Hmm.
Hearing that vibration.
Hmm.
It's really, like, deep. This is some deep thought there. Like, what if?
Hmm.
Because it is a wave,
Hmm.
so therefore it technically could be heard.
Hmm. Agreed.
uh so a lot of it's that perception, and you were talking about, what is true. That goes back to that whole reality idea of what is true for you might not be true for me.
Oh, absolutely. Hey, you froze up on me.
Ta-da. Oh, there I go. Am I back?
You're back. Am
I'm
I
back.
back?
You're
Hi.
back.
Yes.
Something is going on with the Wi-Fi today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what is true for you may not be true for me, and what is true for me today may not be true for me tomorrow.
Agreed. And I
And
think,
that truth is always changing. But this idea, to get back before, and I'll let you go on after this. But to get back to that truth, that idea that there are universal truths. There are things that are always true,
hmm,
so to speak.
hmm, well, right. And I think we have to allow for personal evolution and greater understanding. And also, like with interacting with others, people need different things. Church doesn't fit for me, the church that I grew up in anymore. You know, um, I process and interact with the world differently. I've shifted into something different. But that doesn't mean that, for other people who go to that church, that isn't just the right thing for them.
Mm-hmm.
I
No,
think
no,
they're,
no. No. I've often said that. If it works for you, go for
hmm um, and that's the thing with seeing a psychic and, or some kind of psychic healer or a shaman. This might be, you might really feel like this is just what you need. However, I think like anything else, you need to be an informed and conscious purchaser of services.
it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
There is a lot of what they call psychic fraud or fraudulent psychics out there. It is a big business. They have you know they have done investigations and proved some people to be frauds, and it has been hundreds, if not millions of dollars.
Well, I
Yeah.
think like one of the universal standards I could say, as far as for me, for people, is don't buy into any of these psychics that read rooms or listen. If you're not aware of how cold reading works, I'll give you an example. I used to read tarot cards, um, and I didn't realize what I was doing for the longest time. And when you learn to read tarot cards, you're not so much instinctively. It's just the way you read cards. Is that eventually you will read the people, and I caught myself doing it one day when I was reading cards from my aunt by reading her reactions. And when I fed into those reactions, and I watched myself do it, basically, not like yes, I was kind of like detached from myself and just watching myself do it, but I was aware of what I was doing and I
Mhm.
was consciously doing it, but at the same time I was detached and going, you piece of shit,
Mhm.
like, you know exactly what you're doing now.
Mhm.
And I was reading her. Now,
Mhm.
did that give me some type of personal insight that maybe allowed me to read things into those cards? Maybe,
Mhm.
and maybe I could harness some type of ability to, uh, prepare people for their journey forward in those instances. Maybe, and I stress that as a big fucking maybe. But those people who do those cold readings, who read tarot cards, they read people. I don't give a shit what they try to tell you. They're reading fucking people. I know because I used to do it.
Mhm.
And I don't see it as any other thing. Now, can you use tarot cards as a way of personal growth and to help you, like I was talking before about understanding how things are coming?
Mhm.
Yes, I totally buy that. Totally buy that. They're a great system of transformation. They're a great thing, a great tool to use for personal things, not to divine the future for somebody else.
Right. Well, I think divining the future for someone else is tricky because there's always that element of choice first off, and
Well, and it's
they
just
can.
it's just such a, how many people do they have to prove are doing bullshit things? Do you know what I mean? Like, they come out with these things of the Peter Popoff stuff where he was getting stuff fed to him through his earpiece. You got
Mhm.
all of these John Edwards was a big
Mhm.
one. People
Mhm.
would say, "Oh, I don't know how he did." Meanwhile, they were all filling out cards beforehand,
Mhm.
before
Yeah.
they went into the studio. And like, if you watch some of his unedited stuff, he's grasping for straws more often than he's hitting anything anywhere near the nail
Mhm.
of the head of the
Mhm.
nail.
Right.
But there's so many of these people that are supposedly the good ones that they've come out and shown all kinds of horse shit,
Mhm.
and people still buy into it.
Well, I mean, I think that.
Guaranteed, I can look up right now somewhere John Edwards is having a reading that you can go pay money to go see him. Guaranteed.
Well, right. So this is what we're talking about. It is big business, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it is big business that has the potential to take advantage of people's emotions and wishes. You know, people who want to connect to someone in spirit that maybe died tragically, or someone who is looking to have, something, good news about something. Someone who's looking for
And
love.
and and and
When am I going to find my boyfriend? Like.
and I think you and I can both agree on this. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but that this is more, what we're talking about right now is more mediumship than clairvoyance.
Well, right, because for me, clairvoyance is one of the tools of
Would you
this
say
the
of the
psychic.
medium?
of the medium, of the psychic. But a
Okay.
lot of people put it out there as, I'm a clairvoyant. When to me, all that means is that you have a really great pictorial imaging system in your brain,
Right.
which, in my opinion, anybody can possess that.
Oh, totally agreed.
You know, like, before I even knew about this, I could read, Harry Potter, and I could imagine Harry Potter in my brain and see the images. I created my own Harry Potter world. It's not the world of the movies, but that is that ability to create pictures in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a real picture, but to me it was real because it was a mental experience. To me, that is
Right.
clairvoyance. However, people, you know, advertise themselves as, I am a clairvoyant, as this like magical magician thing, and then sell a service that may be promising a bit too much.
Oh yeah. No, and I think I think for the most part, a lot of them promise just too much. I think that by and large, that's what it is.
Hmm.
And I think for you to go out there and find somebody who's going to sell you the truth, you're not going to really be able to find those people because those people understand things a different way, and they're not gonna sell you that. I don't think. It's that's more of a, you got to learn something, you got to grow. Um,
Or if you take
you
it
know,
as entertainment, a group of friends want to go see a medium, you want to go for a good time,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
no,
as
yeah,
and
as
take it as
entertainment, yeah.
an entertainment, in that you understand that there's no guarantees, that it's an experience. It's like going to some other kind of show and listening to a comedian, who may or may not interact with you if you're going to go see that type of a comedian.
Hmm.
You know, if you go and say, okay, I'm going to go to a psychic medium show, and maybe I'll get picked and the psychic will interact with me or not. But if you go paying for the experience, that's good. If you go with the heart set emotion that I really need to get in touch with my loved one who passed away 2 years ago, that may
Yeah,
be setting yourself up for, some
yeah,
kind of
and I
problems.
don't think that I honestly don't believe that sort of thing happens. I don't believe in the Long Island Psychic. I don't believe in, like I said, John Edwards. I think that there's a lot of tomfoolery that is going on in those quote unquote businesses, and they are selling a whole lot of shit.
Right. Well, and it's not another example of this, and this is, kind of diverging from the psychic medium field, but, a friend of mine at work knows I study astrology. Again, we could go off there, but, she had bought a service of reading from an astrologer, and then has been getting repeated, basically like phishing emails saying, I keep dreaming of you. I think you need to move. Contact me for $30. I will tell you what this dream means. And I'm like, don't you dare. Don't go.
Yeah.
That's problem.
See, that's another thing. Like, people who analyze dreams, I have no respect for that, because I think dreams are very personal, and the symbolism within them. And we can go down that road on another show. We can talk all about dreams, but I think that's very personal. So to have someone else interpret those things, or like I said, directing that energy, or I think these things are personal. They're in their personal ways of growth. There was a thing that happened when my grandmother passed away. um, I had this dream that I was sitting across from my grandfather. A fire. We were sitting across from each other at a campfire. We're talking, and he was just irritated, and I was like, "What's wrong, Grandpa?" And he says, "I want you to tell my children how disgusted I am with them, because everybody was fighting over property.
Mhm.
My grandmother's not even dead;
Mhm.
she's
Yeah.
like
Oh, that's
dying,
awful. Yeah.
and they're like already the bickering and squabbling and the fighting has begun."
Mhm.
And he's like, I want you to tell my children how disgusted I am. And he wanted me to write something and say it at my grandmother's funeral. It's what he told me in the dream, and I'm like, I can't do that, Grandpa. I can't. He's like, yes,
Mhm.
you can. Your grandmother and I will be there with you. And to this day, like I did it, and everything was fine. I was able to make it through it, and surprisingly, like I didn't break down or anything. I held it together.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know if that was just my subconscious telling me to do something,
Mhm.
or if I made a connection with the dead spirit of my grandfather. I don't know.
Yeah, and
Um,
sometimes it's just special enough to have that experience.
right, and
And
not only like
I've had a very similar experience with I had a very vivid, very lifelike dream of my grandmother who had passed over. And she was telling me personal things and giving me some encouragement, and it was wonderful. And then, you know, I remember hugging her, and then she did something, and then I woke up and I remember, and this was like a kind of a personal effect that I had forgotten about, like one of those little tweaks of a personality. And I'm like, oh my God, I had forgotten that she did that. Now, did that make that dream very real experience, very vivid for me? Yes. Did it feel more real to me because this forgotten kind of idiosyncrasy, synchrony, syncrasy, idiosyncrasy kind of popped up in the dream that I had on a conscious level forgotten about? Yes. Is that true, definitive proof that I had a spirit experience? Absolutely not. I had a personal experience that felt very real.
yeah, and I think sometimes it's people just automatically go, oh, I had a spiritual or an experience with a deceased loved one, or
Mhm.
this is what I had. This is what it is. Everything is definitive.
Mhm.
You come across it in a lot of the para fields, be it ghost, Bigfoot, UFO,
Mhm.
whatever. You come across the same type of thing.
Mhm.
Um, I experienced it. It's real. It's
Mhm.
real to me, damn it.
Mhm.
Still real to me, damn it.
Yeah.
Peter Popoff, Yuri Geller. Still real to me, damn it.
Yeah.
You know, I,
So,
I, I, but I think you and I agree on the fact that a lot of this stuff is very personal in nature. And if you're gonna go down these roads, it's a self thing. It's not, and call it selfish, call it whatever the fuck you want. This is a self transformative thing. These types of paths, these things. When you're going into to try and quote unquote harness these inner abilities.
mhm.
You're doing nothing more than trying to transform yourself into a better person.
Mhm.
You know, and as most of these quote unquote religions or practices will put you on that type of a path, that path to being a better person. If you follow that path.
Right. Well, and I think there's a lot of ethical issues too. If you just even say that this is an ability that you can energetically, see whatever, go into the energetic field and pick up information, doesn't mean you should. You know, if you can remote view, you know, doesn't mean you should stalk remotely by through remote viewing that person that you have a crush on. And now I'm not saying it's possible. I'm saying if it is possible and you use it in that way, that is still kind of violating a boundary.
Oh yeah.
And it's, just want, besides being flat out creepy, just, you don't have that person's permission to look into their space anymore if they had been talking to you and you wanted to go peep through their window, same
Right.
kind of thing.
I got a question for you from the chat room, Holly.
Oh, sure.
This
I
is
can't
from
see the chat room, so
This is from Brad. He's better known as Chubbs on the show.
Hey.
Does Holly believe in chi? And I'm gonna preface this by saying I'm pretty sure she does, or at least the idea of uh, uh, bodily energy or spiritual energy.
Right. So I would say chi is the in like a lot of like the Chinese metaphysical world is the word for energy. And with Reiki, Reiki is another. Ki is like the Japanese version of chi. So I do think that there is just a you know, in a lot of ways, I just think it is energy and is how energy is manipulated. Now, with things like qigong and some of the martial arts that come from Japan, China, Korea, they are actively working with what is called that bodily energy, the bodily chi. They
Mm-hmm.
sometimes pull the chi up from the earth to use it to ground, and sometimes work with the flow of energy through the meridians in the body, when they're doing different martial arts moves, that they're going with the flow of that energy. um, I can't remember. There's like they also work to like circulate it through the body. It's like called the microcosmic orbit, and it's using the energetic system of the body to circulate chi.
Yeah, no. In
So
ritual magic, there's an exercise you do to circulate energy through the body. You take it down into the earth and bring it back up into the body, and you circulate it up through the different chakras and around, so on and so forth. It's an energy building exercise.
yeah. So I guess to Chubbs, yes, I do would say believe in chi, and that it is a form of energy, physical energy that can flow through the body, and
Hmm.
also through the landscape in the environment.
Yeah. No,
And
I definitely believe. It's sort of akin to in Star Wars, the Force.
the force
Um,
energy, yeah.
right, same idea.
No
Uh,
metachlorians, but
yeah, no metachlorians. We don't believe in that bullshit. um,
um, but yeah.
but yeah, I mean, and I would say that I do too. I believe that there's some sort of energy, does how it works, and to what degrees it can be channeled and utilized. I don't know. I don't know the answer to those questions. And again, I don't know that we'll ever understand them or know them. Maybe so. Maybe someone, oh, excuse me, along the way here will figure it out and be able to quantify things and uh, and we'll understand it better. Maybe it is a science. Excuse me, that we just haven't quite figured out yet. But I think that something is there. How much is quantifiable and how much we can put stock in,
hmm
I don't know. But I know that there are things there. And, Holly's had experiences, I've had experiences, but we're both of rational minds. So we try to take it back to how can I explain this where it makes sense, even though I know it's outside of the realm of this makes sense.
hmm Yeah, and you and I are both of the same feeling. I think this is fair to say that just because this may be a phenomenon doesn't give anybody the right to take emotional or economic advantage of someone else.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Most definitely. And I think that that's heinous. The stuff that happens, the stuff that goes on with people, it's downright fraud. I can get you in touch with your dead daughter. Fuck you. I'm going to say that outright. Fuck you. Anybody who does that, for one, you're being irresponsible. And for two, even if you can, these people are in horrible, depressive, emotional states. How dare you? You know, how fucking dare you? You know, some of these people just they won't even let go.
Yeah.
You know,
Or
and what they need to do is let go. But these people will friggin' keep them on a leash, like a horse with a carrot
right.
on a
Oh,
stick.
all these bad things that are happening in your life is because your house is infested with evil spirits. And I
Oh,
will come along and clear your house
oh,
for a count
oh,
for the tune of $20,000 per room.
oh, and
And
it's
then you see people like selling their inheritances and cashing out their 401ks to like try to make their life better when there are like maybe more practical, sensible ways
oh
to
yeah.
yeah.
Well, again, it goes back to what we were talking about, like using these systems properly for your own personal development. You know, I think that's the key. You want to do something for you,
Mm.
use one of these systems to develop yourself, become a better soul, so to speak. You know, and that in turn will make changes in your life. I truly believe that if you do, it will. But to just say that because I'm saying it, it's going to happen, no. It's those positive effects that happen within you that you then utilize in your life that make those changes. That's what I believe. I don't think it's I prayed for it or I cast a spell for it and then automatically it's going to come. You know, no. I think there's a little more to it than that. It's a little more complicated.
Right. And I mean, from my perspective, I think, individually on your own or with a group of like minded people, there's nothing wrong with making sacred ceremony to kind of get yourself in the right frame of mind to,
Oh,
um,
to help direct those
to
intentional willed energies. Absolutely, those are good
absolutely,
things.
I think that is actually a very beneficial thing. Um, but be balanced about it. Um,
Hmm.
go with the right intention. I understand what you're asking for too. That's a big one. Sometimes we ask for things or we
Your
set it
your your audio just went kind of squirrely.
and it goes squirrely.
Yeah, it has a few times.
Oh. Is it Bullwinkle and who's the squirrel?
Rocky.
Rocky went a little crazy.
Yeah, I went a little
Sorry.
crazy. That's okay.
All right. Well, I'm not I'm low tech, folks.
Well, no, I think a lot of it has it doesn't necessarily have to do so much with you. I think it's the uh, the platform that we're using, StreamYard, to broadcast onto YouTube, and I think that there's some inherent problems that are still there with certain things that, and we're still working all of those bugs out and trying to get through all those things because it's a great little service that we're using. Um, but it has been a thing. Yeah, no, and that's exactly what it sounds like, James Gall. Her mic is possessed every so often. Um, but yeah, I definitely think that there are people who have these clairvoyant or clair whatever abilities. I think that a lot of them, like I was saying earlier, go back to our reptilian brain. I think
Mhm.
some of those things, those intuitions, those feelings, those things can be traced back to that. Is that a supernatural phenomenon? No, I'd say that's more of a natural phenomenon. Actually, I'd
So
say that
how
I personally think that that's just our brain
right.
processing the data around us and making sound judgment calls.
Right. Have you heard of this, Chris, where fluoride calcifies your pineal gland and
Yeah, but
somehow
I don't.
and well, so
Yes, I've heard.
so I'm just throwing it out there as part of this conversation into clairvoyance because there's the pineal gland, the pituitary gland are all part of that like sixth chakra. So there is this movement to well, you need to do such and such to decalcify your pineal gland so that you can increase your sixth sense.
Yeah, see,
And then like
with any of those things though, it's like if you do any research, start going down the rabbit hole on any of those things, you find out that it's bullshit. Like the fluoride thing, does it do something? It probably does. Okay, I'm even gonna give them that much rope to hang themselves with. It probably does do some damage to your pineal gland, but at the rates and at the amounts that you're using or getting exposed to, that's where the problem comes in usually. And I listen to a lot of medical talk radio. One of the guys I listen to is Dr. Steve. Shout out to Dr. Steve, Weird Medicine. If you haven't checked out Weird Medicine, check it out. He's fucking great. And he will point to a lot of stuff like that where he'll go into something somebody says about something where it's some radical belief about whether it be vaccines or whatever the case may be.
Right.
And he'll be like, and he'll break it down with facts.
Right.
You know, and it's usually like, okay, you know, like he did it with aspartame. And he was like, you know, yes, it is a poison. Yes, if they give this much, but at the
so is sugar.
amounts, right? You know, and at the amounts that you were getting it. Now, I'm one of those people. I still think you shouldn't fucking drink the goddamn shit anyway, or use the goddamn shit anyway. But you know, if you look at it factually, you know, it's not as much the case. So when it comes to that whole fluoride, pineal gland, like, you know, whether or not they were trying to suppress things and if people can rejuvenate that, I mean, I don't know. Good luck to them, I guess. You know, good luck. But I don't know that it's going to do anything for them.
Right. So I happen to know someone who was a dental hygienist, but also quite metaphysical. And her response was, you know, if this really, you know, she, you know, you know, her experience was, you know, she was having clairvoyant phenomenon, and she was a dental hygienist and exposed to fluoride every day.
Mm-hmm.
If that was the case, then she should be completely shut down.
Mm-hmm. Right, from that phenomenon.
Yes, from that phenomenon. I am of the firm belief that, you know, if you feel kind of wary of any kind of, you know, treatment, medicine, do your own research and balance how you feel about something with what the evidence is out there. And it's okay to say, okay, there's just not enough evidence for me to do such and such a thing. But, you know,
I think your cat's possessed.
It might be the cat. That was Augie all of a sudden making an audio appearance.
But yeah, I mean, these phenomena, I believe, like I said, I believe these phenomena exist. To what degree is debatable, and how much action can be taken because of them, I think is debatable, or should be taken because of them, I think is debatable. Should be more to the point.
Yeah.
But you know, this is one of those subjects we're going to touch back on a lot on this show, I think, because clairvoyance is something that is kind of like at the heart of a lot of these subjects that we'll be talking about.
Yeah.
You know, and the fraud part of it too.
Who was that famous psychic who did like the Amityville Horror, the wife? Like she was someone
Lorraine
who really
Warren.
Lorraine Warren really toted like I'm clairvoyant type of thing. From
Yeah,
what I
and
remember.
there's a lot of you know, people really deified the Warrens, and like they're being put in a lot of these, you know, the Conjuring movies and so on and so forth. And I don't know how much stock can be put into the Warrens. You know, it's another one of those things where I think they took advantage of some things, and you know, hey, power to them. In a lot of those cases, they made themselves a nice little museum. They had a nice little Raggedy Ann doll up for everybody to go look at. But how much was real? If it's like I said, it's a shady business. But I think we'll wind up going down a lot of these paths again, and I definitely want to excuse me, I definitely want to look into these psychic crime fighters, because you'd sent me that thing on Bob Nygaard.
Yeah, that was really interesting.
And I think we should definitely do a whole show on psychic crime fighters. I think that could be a cool show. And
Yeah.
maybe I can reach out and try and get this guy.
That would be really cool.
That would be a very, very cool.
Right.
But he, I'll see if I can reach out to him. But then like I said, I think we're gonna go down a lot of these clairvoyant roads while we're doing this show. I think that's gonna be a normal thing for us.
Right.
So
Well,
actually, so on that note, I do think that this was a good jumping off point for us for the show.
Oh, good. Like
And,
I thought.
and unintentionally so.
Well, I thought, we're going to talk about kind of psychic phenomenon and consciousness, like to try to get kind of a basic, you and I at least working, understanding, talking, the same thing, kind of get on the level the understanding, because I think there's been times when you use psychic or clairvoyant differently than how I would use it.
Right.
So just kind of like hammer out like what we agree on, what we don't agree on.
Oh, as far as the terms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what experience entails. So for me, like the clairvoyance is truly just the visual phenomenon, and it's not looking into the future or like projecting.
Right. Although that is a clairvoyant thing. If you're seeing something, so it's kind of hard to make that differentiation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, it is like a sticky wicket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, and I was thinking about astral travel, and like,
yeah.
primarily you may want to, you describe your astral travel experience visually, like, so that it becomes a clairvoyant experience.
Right. But on that note, I think we'll wrap up tonight. Unless you have anything else you want to definitely touch on.
No, I think we talked about a lot. It was exciting having a question from the chat that I can't see.
Yeah, I unfortunately I'm the only one that can see it. I'll have to show you how to set it up so that you can see it and not have it bothering. But and we'll
hey,
figure out.
Thanks for the at least 100 likes on the first episode 0. That was very exciting
it was
for me.
100 views.
100 views. Is that
Yeah,
what it was?
It was
100,
like 20,
views.
20 thumbs up or something like that. But
that was like way more than I expected. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and you can also thank them in the comment section and by talking to them. Like I said, I'll set it up so that you can see the chat next time we do the show.
Okay.
So we'll come up with a topic for next Wednesday, because Wednesdays are going to be the day that we're going to generally do the show. I will try to update that if things change throughout the week, but we're going to shoot for Wednesdays.
Yep.
And Holly and I will figure out another topic for next week. So until then, I'm not going to end this like the Freudian slip. And I'm going to get us different intro music, Holly.
Hey, that's exciting.
As while we are kind of associated
with
the Freudian slip, because it is my show, and I tried to keep it in the, we're
still kind of have that same kind of like porn movie like vibe
in the beginning. I can try to find something very similar. But yeah, that's definitely a thought. So until we all meet again, this is me, and I don't even know how to end this show, because I can't end it the same way as the slip. So I gotta come up with a good way to out the show and not
out the show.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, and not like a closeted gay man. But we will figure that out. Until next time. Yeah, that.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.